Lesson 2. What ESMs are required in a building and why do they need to be maintained? This lesson will take about 5 minutes. At the end of the lesson, you will understand who determines the level of maintenance of essential safety measures in your building, why essential safety measures need to be maintained, and which legislation determines maintenance requirements.
Who determines what ESMs a building requires? Well, that's up to the relevant building surveyor who issues the building permit for those particular works, whether it's a brand new building or an internal alteration to an existing building. It's up to that relevant building surveyor to decide on what those fire protection items are. And if you go to Schedule 9 to the building regulations, in Victoria, Schedule 9 to building regulations, in other states, as I say, there are different documents which specify what fire safety items are. As I say, for instance, in South Australia and in Tasmania, there's director's schedules which lists what those items are. So it's up to the person who issues the occupancy permit to specify what those fire safety items are in the building. After the building permit is issued, the building regulations require the relevant building surveyor, that's the person who issued the building permit, to issue an essential services schedule. And that's the schedule which details what the essential services are in the building. And also to specify the maintenance frequencies that are relevant to those specific fire protection items. And those items can be anything from sprinklers, hydrants, hose reels, emergency lights. And each of those items he's got to specify, he's required by law, not got to, he's required by law to specify the maintenance frequencies on each of those items.
In the absence of this document, a maintenance determination can also be prepared on application to a private or municipal building surveyor or certifier. Remember, occupancy or occupation permits are documents that signify that a building surveyor is satisfied that the completed building works is suitable for occupation.
Your essential safety measures, from a layman's point of view, is basically like the roadworthy for a car. So in Victoria, the VBA have said that if you've got a commercial building, you need to get a roadworthy for your building. It says, are you maintaining your essential safety measures within that building to make sure that it's safe for the people that occupy that building? So in a car, you've got ABS, you've got power steering, you've got brakes. But in a commercial building, you've got more life safety features like fire extinguishers, hose reels, fire panel, all the sort of sprinklers, all the things that go with it. So basically it's a roadworthy to check that makes sure that all the sort of compliance aspects of the building are there and it's maintained.
The type of maintenance required depends on the complexity of the system, the equipment or feature, which is primarily based on the Australian standard AS 1851. Now that you've heard who determines what ESMs a building requires and why it's important to maintain this, let's hear about which legislation determines maintenance requirements. So far, we have discussed who determines what essential safety measures are required in a building and why they need to be maintained. Now, we will look at which legislation governs the process and the required level at which essential safety measures need to be maintained.
The essential service legislation in each state exists in different formats, except in WA and in the Northern Territory. Those two states, territories, do not have any essential service legislation at all. However, in the other states of Australia, they do have essential service legislation, and you can see that legislation on the table. There's a big difference between maintenance and performance requirements. The Building Code of Australia requires you to design a building to a standard called the deemed to satisfy requirements. However, if you can't do that or you don't want to meet those deemed to satisfy requirements, you can design a building to suit And that's when you use those performance criteria. A good example of that is the distance of travel to an exit in an office building or a factory is 40 metres. If you take a large factory or warehouse or even a shopping centre, there's specific requirements which require you to extract smoke from that building if there was a fire in that building. However, if you wanted to increase the travel distance from that building, as I mentioned earlier, in some cases that the smoke extraction system is designed to extract smoke at a faster rate, and hence more volume of smoke is extracted, and therefore the exit path is much clearer for the person to evacuate the building. The maintenance requirements in that case would be to ensure that the building is achieving the higher extraction velocity of the fans over and above that of the building code requirements and the Australian standards. The performance requirements would be specified as part of the occupancy permit.
Let's recap. So now you know who determines the level of maintenance of essential safety measures in your building, why essential safety measures need to be maintained, and which legislation determines maintenance requirements. This will help you understand maintaining essential safety measures and help you ensure your company, staff, and clients are safe.